So my dear friends, I'm very happy to address you once again. As you see, I'm affected a little with the throat as such, but I'm sure you can understand me, you can hear me. We are in a beautiful month, the month of October. I always say the month of October is of two capital M's, Mother Mary and the missions. Mother Mary, as you know, we have the Feast of the Holy Rosary this month and so many other devotions to Mother Mary. And also it's a month of the missions. We have the Mission Sunday, much more than that which I shall speak to you. Let's begin with the message of the week. It's a beautiful message. It's a very fundamental message because without this element, our faith, our life means nothing. In fact, it's about faith. Faith is a gift of God. For a Christian not to have faith is like to grow wildly. Perhaps some of us, we say we have faith. We have some devotions, we say the Our Father, Hail Mary, sing our hymns loudly. And that we call it faith. But the real faith which the today's gospel speaks of is much beyond. First of all, it's a gift of God. It's not that everyone who can qualify, do some exams or do some tests, and you say, I'm qualified to be considered as a man of faith. No, it's a gift of God. God gives that faith, as it were, and makes it grow and persevere in some people. Why did God have to trust Moses? Why did God have to trust Abraham? Why did God have to trust Peter? Of all the persons, not reliable at all. But then God saw something in them. And that is why we say faith is something that we can, of course, request, but also followed up by God. Faith is always a challenge. Faith is not a luxury. We are going for a pilgrimage, we are going for everyone laughing, enjoying. This is our faith, we say. Yeah, could be an expression of our faith, but not the faith itself. Because imagine, something goes wrong, and suddenly you say, what has happened? We are going for a holy purpose. We are going somewhere to do something, and everything has crumbled. Where is God? Where is God? I saw a person beating his breast to say that where is God? He had lost his son. Of course, it was very tragic. But I could even understand his feelings to say, where is God in such a situation? That is faith. That is faith. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verse 5 to 10, Jesus says, if you had faith of a size of a mustard seed, if it falls, go in search of it, I don't think you'll find it. A mustard seed. But then the mustard seed also gives a shrub, roots as it were, and becomes a big shrub as it were. And therefore the comparison between the seed and the result, the fruit that comes out is much, much different. And what is God is asking us? Not to bear big fruits, but only to have that faith as small as the mustard seed. But then it's not enough to have the mustard seed faith as such, the size of the mustard seed. We have to see that it grows, see that it is active. Jesus has another example in that same gospel where he says, a servant of yours who is working outside in the field, he comes back. Of course, you can see that he is tired. But you say, no, you go inside, have a bath, relax. No, he is a servant, and therefore the master tells him, go and get ready, put my food on the table, lay it, wait for me to finish, and then you can do. This is the work of a servant, so we are all like the servants. We don't take benefit of any fruits of our faith. That is left to God. Sometimes when you see these pioneers, the missionaries, we will be speaking of many missionaries this month. So many of them, they have come generously. They have worked years and years, no fruit, no change. But they have never grumbled. They accepted this. And we have seen, and the history tells us, that many of them, after these missionaries went away or perhaps died, the fruits came in abundance. The vocations came in abundance. And so many missionaries, our missionaries that came. The second reading, St. Paul tells us this other aspect which I referred to in 2 Timothy chapter 1, 6 to 8, verse 13 to 14, etc., that faith is essentially a gift of God. But this gift is given not as a present that you can go and lay it and perhaps use it when you want. No, the gift is given for use and not for timidity. Remember, St. Paul is very strong in these matters. Not for timidity, but a spirit of power and love and self-control. It's like you are given something, but the use of it is going to be much more difficult for you, much more challenging for you, but it is given to you because God trusts you. God may not be trusting everybody else when He gives these gifts of faith. And with St. Paul, He surely gave him in abundance. And St. Paul says, never be ashamed of witnessing to Christ. He says, I am a prisoner of God, a prisoner. Perhaps in his own logic, he could have said that I am doing so much that God could have given me vehicles, God could have given me persons, security, and it's everything in abundance. But I am a prisoner. I am not free myself. I don't choose the food that I eat. I don't choose the rest that I want. Perhaps this is the way of the gospel, the way of the disciples, the way of the apostles as such. The first reading also as an inkling, Habakkuk, the prophet Habakkuk, he is complaining to God, rather he is crying out to God for his suffering. But at the same time he is trusting God, that God will not abandon me. And trusting in the Lord even when it seems beyond his grasp. That is the importance of today's message, the faith in God. Let us, my dear brothers and sisters, faith is best proved when it is challenged. At times that are happy-go-lucky, there are no troubles, there are no struggles, there are no persecutions, there are no martyrs. There are no martyrs. And therefore perhaps our faith, unless it is tested personally, socially, as a community, we will not be producing the fruits. If you see the history of the church, when there were persecutions, there were more saints, there were more martyrs, there were more people to carry the cross of Jesus. And the church went down, or perhaps in decadence, in those times when church flourished. Everything was joy, everything was gold, everything was palaces. The church, the decadence also was during this time. So let us ask the Lord in our own personal life to have a strong faith like the mustard seed. I now speak about the mission month. I said October is also another capital M, that's the mission. And the mission month has already begun, about already 3-4 days now. And on the first day itself, I gave a message to say why the Archdiocese of Bangalore is celebrating the Mission Month. We know, all of us know what's called Mission Sunday. It was a one-day wonder, one-day celebration. And the Mission Sunday, the whole church got activated, the calendars, the envelopes, the presents, etc. And we were making it a one-day happening. Slowly, from last 4-5 years, we said, Mission Sunday deserves much more. Rather, the theme of mission deserves much more. Why not celebrate the whole month as the mission month? And with that, we began, as it were, in small scale, but now it's picking up, and especially the Commission of Evangelization and also proclamation headed by Father Kanikadas. He is himself a missionary in Pavgada, does so many beautiful things, and his clips, his WhatsApp messages are so encouraging, because in a mission like Bangalore, if you can do so much, how much more the missionaries must be doing elsewhere. So I said the capital M is missions for us. So from the 1st of October till the 31st of October, we will be praying for our missions. We will be hearing the missionaries. We will be seeing the endeavors of the missions. We will also see our Archdiocesan missions, the priests among us who have got little mission experience. And more than anything else, don't forget, the religious of our Archdiocese are many, many missionaries. They are missionary congregations. They have their fathers and sisters in dangerous places in Sudan, in Africa, in South America, in China, perhaps in Papua New Guinea, where life is not easy. But many of our religious priests and nuns whom we will be seeing in the evening sessions of our mission month, perhaps will give us also an inspiration. More than anything else, don't forget, our own Archdiocese patron is the biggest missionary, St. Francis Xavier. He came to India in the 15th, 16th century, and ever since, the whole of South India perhaps was evangelized by him. In some way, our own ancestors, it has spread faith. Of course, St. Thomas came to India 2000 years ago, but the church and its effect remained mostly in Kerala. But with St. Francis Xavier, it flourished to the whole of India. It's not only that, the missionaries also began to come to India, and our own Archdiocese, we are blessed, we are grateful to the missionaries, especially the MEP missionaries who proclaimed the Word of God, and so many vestiges of their interest, of their hard work are in our Archdiocese. Some of our churches built by the missionaries, the Cathedral Church, the Basilica Church, the St. Joseph's Chamrajpet Church, these are all small examples of our missions and missionary activities. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, we will be, as I said, every evening from 7 to 8, there will be some mission activity, maybe missionary prayer, an adoration, a talk, or something that will connect you to the missions as such. And after this, of course, we are also thinking of projecting certain films on the missions and the missionaries. And so there are some of us who are very fond of watching films, nothing wrong in that. But perhaps in October month you could sit with your children and family, see some of the films, or rather the pictures of the saints. St. Teresa of the Child Jesus, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Francis de Sales, Mother Teresa herself, and so many beautiful films that you can watch every evening. On the screen will be Father Maria Anthony, who is the director of the Archdiocesan Communication Center, will give you these communications of the mission month. 7th of October is the Feast of the Holy Rosary, and perhaps a much loved feast in our Archdiocese. We have some churches dedicated to Our Lady of the Holy Rosary, the Church of Harubale, which celebrates it with great pomp and sort of glorious traditions. The recent Church of Our Lady of the Holy Rosary at Venkatala on the airport road, and there are also other smaller churches that celebrate. And so perhaps what's the importance of this feast for us? First of all, the Rosary. The Rosary is a connected chain, as it were. The beads are all connected together. And they say one of the greatest things that has united the family over the years is the Rosary. All other things we do ourselves. I can attend to my phone by myself. I can read the newspaper by myself. I can eat quietly. I can do many things. But when we say the Rosary, the Holy Family comes together. It's so beautiful in some of our families to see the little children, babies. I saw one mother was holding the baby, and the Rosary was in the hand of the baby, and the mother slowly counted. But the baby cried at all the times, but not when the Rosary was going on, because she understood what is the meaning of the Rosary. So therefore, the children together, the parents together, spend a time little on the Rosary. Perhaps the Rosary is not only a devotion, but It was a miraculous event which made Pope Pius X that we should adopt the rosary as the rosary of the family. This was in 1570, something which happened that time, which has still effect. And what happened that time? In that year, 1570, there was this battle of Lepanto, they call it, in Europe. A certain place, Lepanto, there was a big war. The war between the Turks and the Italian forces, or the papal forces as they were called. And it was a very important moment for the church to think that if they had lost this war, the whole of Europe would have gone to the Turks, that means the Muslims, and perhaps we would have no religion of ours. But then the only weapon that the Pope used that time, Pope knowing very well that his soldiers were counted very less and they didn't have those sophisticated weapons, whereas the Turks had the best of weapons and the biggest number, lakhs of soldiers. Here they were just thousands. And the Pope said, we are helpless. Nothing can be done. But nothing is impossible with God. And therefore, he made just one announcement. Every one of you go on your knees and pray the rosary. Pray the rosary. That was the only thing that he said, and that was the miracle. Somehow, the enemy forces, they just couldn't go take a step ahead. They couldn't hold these things properly. Many of them were getting sick. Many of them fell there. And it's as good as not a single person perhaps was killed, but they retreated themselves. Will come some other time, they said, but that some other time didn't come because Mary had conquered Europe for the Christians. So therefore that was the miracle for which Pope 1570, Pope Pius X proclaimed everywhere that the rosary is going to be our weapon. The rosary is going to be our gun that we will fire with Mother Mary. So my dear brothers and sisters, once again, as I wish you the feast of the Holy Rosary, please go back to your rosaries. Please make some time. The mothers especially, to make it a strict thing for the children and the husband. Yeah, you have got a lot of work, you have got a lot of tuitions, but come back here at 8 o'clock, 8:30, why not 9 o'clock? But all of us will meet here to say the rosary. And that is what will save us, will save our families. Like the Battle of Lepanto, there are many battles that are fought today against our own religion, against our own family traditions. Why? The unity in the family is at stake. And so, Mother Mary will surely help us. I now take you to the saint of the week, a great saint. The 4th of October, that's just sort of get over. And the feast of what we call the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. And you all know what is St. Francis of Assisi, what he means to the world. Born a rich man, but at the same time was a poor, friend of the poor, friend of the ecology, friend of all the things that perhaps we can ever speak of in environment today. St. Francis Xavier, St. Francis Assisi represents. Besides St. Francis of Assisi, we have also on the 11th of October what we call the feast of Pope John the 23rd. It's a wonderful Pope. Pope John the 23rd. He was a portly man, always smiling, and almost there are even some jokes said about this saintly Pope, how he invited and this one. Someone told me about, Pope John Kennedy. That time was the President of America, when Pope John the 23rd was the Pope from 1957, 58 to 63 or so. And the President John, along with his wife Jacqueline, wanted to visit the Vatican and meet the Pope. And the Pope also was not nervous, but then he knows there are protocols of addressing the President and all that. And he's supposed to have asked his officers, I can understand that I address the President John as President. How do I address the lady, the First Lady? And they told her, Holiness, you can call her First Lady, or you can call her Madam Jacqueline, and so many other things. But actually, when President John and Jacqueline came into the hall and the Pope was coming from the other side, the Pope went and hugged Jacqueline and said, "My dear Jacqueline," so lovingly. She was like a daughter, granddaughter to him. And that is the way perhaps the world looked at him and all the things that he done. We have to remember that Pope John 23rd was elected Pope at a very fragile time. The world was in crisis. As you know, before Vatican, everything had gone to the rusting position. Not resting, but rusting. The liturgy was very much impersonal. The rubrics were so much. The laws were so much. And many people had just sort of taken religion as a matter of fact, as a matter of habit, rather than a passion. Faith in God, which we saw in the gospel today. So therefore, that is this time that Pope John 23rd was elected the Pope at the age of 78. You can imagine this is a day, this is a retirement for all ages and for all stages. But why did the cardinals elect at that age the Pope? Because they could not come to a conclusion as to who could be the next Pope. And so in the end they said, let's elect this man who is old enough. Let him go for 2-3 years, and then maybe we'll get time to select, or rather to identify the next Pope who will be a great Pope. A great Pope. And with that they elected John the 23rd, and the world also was very quiet. Old Pope, what can he do? But he did the greatest of earthquakes took place during his time. He convened the Second Vatican Council. In the year 1959 or so, at the Basilica of San Paolo, where people had gathered to listen to some ordinary sermon and perhaps finish it off, the Pope's Mass, suddenly they were given a sort of a flash. And the flash was the Pope announced that I'm going to convene what we call the Synod for Rome, the Rome Diocese, and a council for the whole world. The people could not believe. How could the Pope say this? How could the Pope do this? But then that is what he did. And the Vatican Council took its roots, as it were. And though he did not live long, about 4 or 5 years after that he died, the next great Pope was also Pope Paul VI. And he took it up. And he created also a revolution, as it were, with the different documents of Vatican Council that came, that overturned everything that was before. As the oldsters, I don't know how many are still alive, can remember the old masses, the facing the altar, and it was in Latin. Fortunately, Latin also was loaned to the people, and they answered in Latin, some of them. They never saw the face of the priest except when he preached, but the rest of the Mass was there. And many other people, not understanding, not knowing, perhaps must have gone to sleep also. But suddenly the things changed. The priest facing the audience and making it interactive with the dialogue as such, and also the beautiful liturgy, in every sphere, in every sphere, as it were, there was improvement, there was change. Of course, the Church also, with its newfound freedom, lost some things, vocations. Many priests left. The Church was in disarray for some time. Many oldsters, the traditionalists, grumbled, what is all this? It's all drama. But then Pope John knew what he was doing. Pope Paul VI knew what he was doing. And that is the Vatican Council for us. So please remember in your prayers and seek the Pope's benediction. Very specially, the Pope is now a saint. He has been raised to the altar of the saint, and the feast is on 11th of this month, October. Let me just take you to the last point, namely the jewel of the Church. And for this jewel, I go around the city looking for jewels. And fortunately, I am very happy. I am never disappointed, because each jewel shines in a separate way, a different way. Some jewels shine through the sides. Some jewels shine through the center. Perhaps this is at the, I won't say periphery, because this jewel comes from Jayanagar, the parish of Jayanagar. It's called Krista Prabhalaya Church, and that is going to be our jewel that will I explain to you. And so this jewel begins its story in 1944, we can say, of course not exactly 1944. In the 1944, the Bangalore city had a big improvement board called Bangalore City Improvement Trust Board, CITB. And this board was something like our BDA, or even perhaps the BBMP, and much more than that, the Greater Bangalore that they call it. It was of that time, 80, 90 years ago. And so they decided that the Bangalore is extending or will extend in the future, and therefore they identified certain pockets on the peripheries, that time peripheries, but now they are center of the city. And one of these peripheries was the present Jayanagar. But you know what is called earlier? It was called what we call the hunting village or the hunting station of the city of Bangalore. The Christians of this area, especially what we call the few Christian families, and they were living in huts in Lal Bagh tank site. But the government wanted to improve that site, so sort of uprooted these people and told them to go far away, and they were allowed to go and stay close by, rather far away, in this particular part of the city of Jayanagar called the hunting station or the hunting site. Can you imagine that our people were considered something of a hunting tribe that time, 80, 90 years ago? They were poor people living in huts. And the parish, till 1949, these are people of Jayanagar who were in Tank Band side, the Lal Bagh side, used to attend Mass at St. Joseph's Church, Chamrajpet, that was started in 1949, and in 56 they moved to another church that was established in the vicinity, that's St. Teresa's Church, Kabanpet. And therefore CITD authorities took over the land around Lal Bagh, and the displaced families provided them a hunting colony or hunting village near Jayanagar East. So there begins the story of the Krista Prabhalaya Church. The place, of course, is called now Tilak Nagar, but then we know that in the past that this particular place was called the hunting station or the hunting colony. The two priests that are supposed to have taken a lot of interest in this, one is Father Castellino, then the parish priest of St. Teresa's Church, and he tirelessly put his efforts to get grant of two small sites of the CITB to start St. Anthony's Primary School in 1957. Most Reverend Thomas Pathakumari, then Archbishop of Bangalore, blessed it in 1957. The people of the hunting colony had to go all the way to St. Teresa's Church there, as no masses were offered in this place, once in a way only, and Father Castellino could afford only one mass a month, and that also in the area celebrated in St. Anthony's School of Tilak Nagar. The other priest who took a lot of interest and perhaps realized was Father David of St. Anthony's Friary, and he was a stalwart. The monthly mass, he gave more masses for the people. He started weekly mass, and slowly it began as a daily mass. And the present church site was allotted in 1966. Father Castellino and Father David invested the effort and began the construction work of this new church in 1967. Father Castellino sadly died in 1969, but the church continued, and it was dedicated to the mystery of Epiphany, Christ proclaimed to the whole world. To that small shed, as it were, the crib of Bethlehem gives shining light to all over the world. And so the Epiphany of our Lord Jesus Christ was the name that was given for this church. And in our own language, we call it Krista Prabhalaya. It was blessed on 2nd March 1969 by Archbishop, Most Reverend Dr. Lud Swami. As you know, that is the time also the Vatican Council was going on, and Archbishop Lud Swami had to go quite frequently to Rome, but one of those places when he was there, he blessed this church. In April 1944, the church completed 25 years and celebrated its silver jubilee. On 25th August 1996, the new church construction was started. It was blessed and inaugurated by Archbishop Alphonsus Matthias after 25 years of its birth, and on the Silver Jubilee Day, as it were. By late 1990s, the Christa Prabhalaya was experiencing rapid growth, with new families joining the parish at Jayanagar and surroundings developed into a vibrant resident area. The parish population increased, the children increased, and slowly our sisters also began their school and educational efforts, and the youth programs, the service of the families and children. And the parish also implemented new pastoral programs, catechism classes, outreach activities, etc. Not only the church-related activities, but also social activities like, for example, enhancements to the church, the slow sliding ramp, as it were, for the elderly to come to the church, and then the parish hall, the parish gatherings, meetings, etc. Along with that, also social activities for the underprivileged, food drives, donations, financial aid for the families, and scholarships and mentoring of students, underprivileged children. And during the COVID-19, you should remember that this church did a lot. It collected a lot of funds and also distributed for many people, not only the Catholics, but all the non-Catholics close to the church, were also helped during the COVID-19 times by help and support. And in 2019, once again, the church celebrated what we call the 50th year, the Golden Jubilee. I was there to see the great joy of the people, and at the same time, their longing and sense of belonging to the parish. The present parish priest is Father Naveen Kumar. As you know, he did very well as the director of social work in our Archdiocese, and then he was appointed the parish priest. He's doing well. He's taking all the people into confidence, into repairing, renovation the church, the Blessed Sacrament Chapel, the grotto, so many other things that he's doing. The other priests who have been here also perhaps should be remembered. As far as I know, Father Antappa did a great job there, and also Father Jofra also did a lot of job there, and maybe the other priests that are there did. And I wish Father Naveen and all the parishioners and all the people are very happy, what we call the shining of the jewel in this Archdiocese. May God bless you all.